Welcome everyone to webinar 34 of Mastering Life Shorts, and today we're going to be talking about imposter syndrome. Now, imposter syndrome, for those people who don't know, is that feeling that you shouldn't be where you are, that you've got a promotion or you've got a job or you're doing something, maybe giving a presentation on imposter syndrome, but you actually feel that you're actually a bit of a fraud. Now, over time, I have felt this a number of times. So here, this is a picture of me in Jakarta a couple of years back. I was giving a presentation on, believe it or not, how to teach A-level business. Only problem is, at the time, I'd never run my own business. I had never taught A-level business. I had never taught business full stop. And I was telling teachers who were business studies teachers how to teach A-level business. And believe me, I felt massive imposter syndrome in doing that. Now, I overcame it by saying to the people I was talking to, I'm an imposter. I shouldn't be teaching you this. But you know what? What I knew was how to structure an exam, or about the structure of the exams they were teaching, the structure of the course, all of these things that they actually needed to know from me. I wasn't telling them the business content that they knew already. So it was fine, but I did have that feeling of, should I be up here? Turns out at the end of the day, I got really good evaluations for that course. It's also happened to me when I first was asked to talk at the Gay Coaches Alliance conference. I had been fairly new into coaching, and I thought to myself, you know what, I'd want to go out there and talk and tell people what I'm doing. And just before that presentation, I sat there thinking, who am I to talk to these people? These are experienced coaches. I'm going to teach them to suck eggs. Again, really positive feedback from that. Only last week, I had a couple of people come to me and ask me to do a workshop on LGBT plus coaching, and another one on a really big project that's looking like something very exciting. I'm thinking, can I do this? Am I qualified? Am I just a fraud if I agree to these things? Imposter syndrome is real, and I feel it all the time. And you may do too. Now, what are the symptoms of imposter syndrome, so you can find out if you're feeling it or not? Well, first of all, self-doubt, that feeling that you can't do it, that you're not good enough to do that other people are better than you and should be in the place of doing this thing instead of you. If you have the inability to realistically assess how good you are at something, so whether it's your own abilities in the job you're doing, or in knowing whether you're doing a good job at all, that can be a problem in imposter syndrome. And in particular, people notice their own issues, their own mistakes. So people who are feeling imposter syndrome will notice when they start a presentation and they say the wrong words, or the presentation doesn't quite start as it should do. And you think, oh, this just proves that I shouldn't be doing this. I'm a total fraud. A lot of people attribute their success to external factors. So for example, they will say, I only got into this university because I did well on my exams. I only did well on my exams because I worked really hard, and I worked harder than other people. They didn't work as hard, so they deserve to be here better. Or I only got this job because I was coached by the person who was already doing this job, so I knew the sorts of questions they'd be asking in the interview. I don't deserve this. That's a massive imposter syndrome issue. And a major one is that fear that people will call you out as a fraud, that you haven't managed expectations in the way that you should do, that the people will actually find out that you're not as good as you said you were, or other people said you were, that you've been put up on this pedestal, and it's completely undeserved. And sometimes it comes out as self-sabotage. So it might be, for example, that you procrastinate on big projects that you've got to do because you're a little bit scared of getting it wrong, or in that you don't allow yourself to go for the next job because you don't think you're good enough. And so you stop yourself and you pull yourself back. All of those are symptoms of imposter syndrome. And it basically means that we don't recognize that we are as good as we could be. So what's going on here? So the first thing is confirmation bias. Now we see this in other contexts, in these two pictures, in people who deny that humans are causing climate change, and people who say that vaccines aren't good. So in the case of climate change, people would say, oh, the global warming's not happening. Look, it snowed once in Texas. Um, when obviously they're completely misunderstanding the difference between weather and climate. With vaccines, we've heard it in the last few weeks where people are saying the vaccines are terrible because a very, very, very small proportion of people have side effects that are potentially life-changing. And therefore the whole vaccine is terrible. In imposter syndrome, confirmation bias comes from, I think I'm terrible, so I'm going to notice when I do things that aren't very good. What I don't notice is all the times I am good, in the same way that the vaccine deniers don't notice all of those times that people got better because of a vaccine or stayed safe because of a vaccine. I'm denying my own abilities if I have confirmation bias and I'm feeling imposter syndrome. There's also the ladder of learning that's worth pointing out. So we work through this ladder in whenever we're doing something new. So if I give the example of driving a car, before you start to learn to drive, you have unconscious incompetence. That means you don't know what you don't know. So you're sitting in the passenger seat as a kid and you're looking at, you think that all you need to do to drive a car is to move the steering wheel. You don't know that you have to do all the bits and pieces with the, the gears and the indicators and the lights and the pedals and everything else that's going on to drive a car. Then you get your first lessons and you consciously realize that you don't know a load of stuff and you have to be taught through each of those things. Over time, you get to the conscious competence bit where you say, right, I'm coming up to this hill, so I have to change my gear. I'm going into this bend, so I have to change my speed. But you have to think about it. And you're still thinking mirror, signal, maneuver, and still counting the number of seconds before passing the same point as the car in front. And over time, you get used to all of those things and it gets embedded in your unconscious memory or your unconscious brain. And therefore you can do them without thinking. You can sing along to Kylie Minogue as you're driving along on the motorway and not think about the fact that you're doing all of this really complicated stuff. Now, in jobs, what often happens is people become aware of their incompetence when they move to another job. So for example, they might be promoted. They might have a vague idea that they're consciously incompetent in leadership, for example, but they get a promotion and then they suddenly think, but I don't know how to lead my team. I don't know how to delegate effectively. I don't know how to performance manage. Maybe they then go on a course and it becomes conscious competence and they know how to do it, but they can't do it without checking the rule book between meetings. Now, at that point, you're likely to feel massive imposter syndrome, because at that point you're thinking, other people are doing this and they're much better than me. Related to that is the Dunning-Kruger effect. Now, the Dunning-Kruger effect is that when people know very little, they think they know more. So this happens again with driving, where 17-year-olds pass their driving test and then think they can do any type of driving under any weather conditions with 5 of their friends singing along and smoking and drinking in the back. And of course, what happens is they have massive accidents because they don't know what they don't know. So the Dunning-Kruger effect on the other side happens when you actually know that you don't know. So a great example of this, when I was in school, I used to play the flute and my brother used to play the viola. Now, I was a reasonable flute player, but I would play a piece of music a few times and I'd be okay with it. And I got quite far, but I was okay. My brother, on the other hand, was really good. and he would play the same phrase several times, and I wouldn't even be able to hear the differences, but he would play those phrases again and again and again, and he would hone it to make it better each time. Now, he probably thought that he wasn't as good as the soloist he wanted to become, whereas I thought, I can do this, it's fine. So there's a point that you know that you don't know, and that gives you confirmation bias, because another part of this, imposter syndrome, another part of this is that you're constantly comparing yourself with people who are even better than you, instead of noticing how far you've come. There's another effect that's involved in this called pluralistic ignorance. Now, what this is that we don't know what other people are thinking. When we're in an office, we're sitting there, we're thinking, I'm just running to keep still. I'm trying my hardest and I don't know my stuff. What we then think is that everyone else does, because they look really calm and collected. We don't realize that those people are going, I don't have a clue. So, you could go into a meeting, be promoting your new product and thinking, I only learned about some of this stuff the other day. I hope we don't go off the book because I don't know anything else, and I'm not ready. I'm not prepared. I'm not good enough. I shouldn't be here. What we're not noticing is the other person's going, I don't know anything about this subject. I hope they tell me some stuff, because I don't know where we're going on this. What they're not thinking is, who is this person? They're no good. Every now and then we've met someone who has, probably from the Dunning-Kruger effect, got promoted above us, and we think, why on earth did you get the job? But actually, the vast majority of the time, everyone is working so hard in just keeping themselves in the job they're in that they don't notice anyone else's issues. Now, there are some benefits to the imposter syndrome, and the most important one is that it keeps us on our toes. It means that we don't stop learning. I noticed every now and then, and when I was teaching, I stopped teaching because I stopped myself from learning new techniques and things. I was just like, you know what, I can teach. I'm fine. I spent more of my time learning about management skills. And after 12 years, I thought, this is silly. I'm not becoming a better teacher because I was resting on my laurels. The imposter syndrome actually pushes us forwards because we know that we don't know, and we want to push forwards and get better. And this is the first step to overcoming imposter syndrome. So the first thing we need to do is notice that we're feeling like an imposter, that we've got imposter syndrome. And you look at those symptoms and you think, yes, I've got those, and therefore I need to do something about how I feel. The next thing you need to do is notice when you're telling yourself stories. So are you telling yourself stories about your lack of ability? Are you telling yourself stories about what other people are thinking about you, for example? Or are you telling yourself stories about how good other people are in comparison to you, and that they find it really easy and you don't? And you need to question those stories and those assumptions. You also need to see it as a journey, that, yeah, you got promoted, and yes, you're not great at your job yet, but you will be. And think about, in 6 months' time, how can you look back and see your journey and really feel proud of the journey you've come on? So instead of saying, I need to be perfect immediately, just go, you know what? I'm going to learn on this journey, and bring people along. And the most important thing you can do to overcome imposter syndrome is to talk to people. Ask people for feedback, so you get real views on how well you're doing and what you're doing. And also ask for help. Say, listen, I don't know the best way to deal with this situation. One of the fascinating things about being a coach is when I'm talking to people, sometimes I have no idea what they're talking about. And I'll say to them, okay, what's the best question I can ask you right now? And you know what? It brings out amazing things, because I'm not in their shoes, but they know what they need. And what I do when I'm coaching is I give them a space to do that. And sometimes we need to give other people a space to help us to improve ourselves. As always, I've put together a worksheet for today. Now, this worksheet goes through the symptoms, so you can spot imposter syndrome, and then asks you to start noticing when you're feeling imposter syndrome, how you can get over it. So it tries to get you to unpick where that imposter syndrome is coming from. Now, as always, it may be that it would be easier to talk to someone else about this. So absolutely get in touch with me, and we'll see if we can schedule a complimentary experience coaching session where we can talk about the fact you've just got a new job, or you want to think about going for a new job, but you're not really sure whether you should, and whether actually you genuinely don't have the skills, or whether you're just self-sabotaging. Uh, all of the details is on the worksheet, which you can get from my website, englishleathermaster.com/mastering life shorts, with the password confirm with a capital C. Next week, I'm not going to be doing Mastering Life Shorts. I am taking a break from Mastering Life Shorts. I have been given a couple of really big projects, which are very, very exciting. And I'm also about to launch a really exciting new element to English Leather Master coaching. So I'm taking a break from setting up Mastering Life Shorts every week. It might come back because I really enjoy doing it. And I've been really grateful for everyone who watches live and everyone who watches on YouTube. So thank you so much for your time that you share with me. Do keep in touch. Get on my email mailing list if you're not already there. So go to englishleathermaster.com and download Mastering Life the ebook. And if you do that, then you'll be on my list, or follow me on Twitter, ELM Coaching. And then, first of all, you'll hear about this new venture that I'm about to launch in a couple of weeks' time. And if Mastering Life Shorts comes back, which it may well do because I really enjoy it, you'll hear about it first. So until then, keep mastering your own life, keep mastering your own work. Do get in touch if you haven't done already. I would love to do a coaching session with you, complimentary, and do stay safe in this completely mad world that we live in. Thank you so much, and goodbye.